This is a Security Weekly production.
This week on the Stogie Geeks show, we welcome back Aaron Loomis of Developing Palates. Our Debonair Ideal segment focuses on cigar scoring. And in our Stogies of the Week, there is another battle with Chuck Norris. All that and more, so stay tuned.
Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where cigars burn slow, ashes fall fast, and cocktails flow steady. It's the Stogie Geeks Show. Brought to you by paying homage to the Mecca of tobacco, Pinar del Rio, Cuba. Abe Flores opened his PDR cigar factory in the Dominican Republic over 10 years ago. Abe is one of the hottest boutique cigar makers in the industry today, earning the number 10 spot on Cigar Aficionado's Top 25 Cigars of 2014 with the Abe Flores 1975 Serie Privada. Abe and his team use Cuban blending traditions in a modern boutique Dominican factory. Smoke PDR cigars and cut, light, and taste what they love to do. Duran Premium Cigars, one of the fastest growing boutique cigar companies, providing smokers a portal into the old Cuban tradition of perfect balance and the lost art of progressive flavor construction. Roberto Pelayo Duran began his career in tobacco over 2 decades ago in Havana, where his reputation grew within Cuban circles. The creation of Duran Premium Cigars has given Roberto the platform to introduce a series of cigars that offer the same quality, construction, and detail which he perfected while in Cuba. Brands include the ultra-premium Roberto P. Duran Premium Cigar Series, Azan Cigars, Nea, and Baracoa. Duran Cigars uses a seed-to-humidor approach, as all tobacco is grown on their farms and rolled in their factory in Esteli, Nicaragua. Rollers have been carefully chosen to carry out Roberto's precise method to ensure progressive flavor in each cigar. Duran Cigars invites you to make their premium your standard. M. Bombay cigars represent the most admired cigar culture of Cuba. They select the best of the best quality tobacco to use in the aging process. M. Bombay cigars are then rolled in Costa Rica by some of the most experienced cigar rollers, giving it a unique smoking experience. The band portrays the detailed and artistic nature of our small industry. Try the M. Bombay Casera, M. Bombay Mora, and the recently released M. Bombay Habana. M. Bombay cigars, where the cigar is a way of life.
Welcome, everybody, to the Stogie Geeks show. I'm Will Cooper, and I'm manning the controls from Studio C in North Carolina. Up in the G-Unit studios, we have Riley and Mark manning the controls, and we got a great show for you tonight. So, yes, we do. And we started on time, by the way. Actually, we started a little early. So, Paul is taking a well-deserved day off. So with the family, so he'll be back next week for the show. But we are not alone. Tonight we have filling in my good friend from Developing Palates. He's got a new website we're getting into, Mr. Aaron Loomis. Aaron, welcome back to the Stogie Geeks show.
Thank you for having me on again, Coop. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
No, and I really appreciate you coming in and co-hosting tonight. Something I've been wanting to do with you for a while. You know, it's kind of funny, Aaron, because when we first met, I remember when we first met, and I don't know if you do, but we were doing Brandon Luna's podcast on the FDA.
That's right. Comes full circle.
Come full circle. I thought it was kind of funny, yeah, because we're gonna talk a little about FDA.
Right.
We're each smoking an unbanded cigar. And we will cover this unbanded cigar in the second segment. It's a Bellicoso. I have no idea what this is. So far, it's starting off pretty good. How about yours, Aaron?
Yeah, same thing. Starting off pretty well.
Yep, and yours just came off the truck, by the way. So we had so we got to give Aaron. But Aaron, as folks know, he was for a long time with Blind Man's Puff, and he did some great work there. And now after a little hiatus, you are back. Correct?
Correct.
So
been live for a couple months now.
Yes. So you and June Liu, I tell you what, when I saw, you kind of sent me a little early preview of Developing Palates, and I was really, right out of the gate, I was real impressed with what you guys are doing. Just the whole layout. You guys, I think, are doing some real unique things that we haven't seen with a lot of the other online media sites. So why don't you just give us the little skinny on Developing Palates?
Sure. So June and I, we were both working on Blind Man's Puff. We both departed from there. We wanted to start up something on our own to try out a few new techniques and different things that we wanted to give a shot at. So we put together this site. It's he and I as really the two reviewers. We're both co-owners on the site. And basically the format for the reviews is that we both smoke the same cigar. So you're going to get 2 points of view on the cigar. We do our scoring. And we also do a video recap. So it's not the full-blown, the same stuff that you can just read. It's just more of a recap of our experience. So it's a real quick, usually 20, 25-minute video. You get both of our points of view. We might go a little off topic sometimes based on something we experienced during the cigar that we want to kind of flesh out a little bit more. But I think one of the more unique things is that we're trying a different scoring system than I think what's out there for most sites. At least I don't think I've seen anybody else doing it for cigars this way. Is that we're using it? It's a 10-point scale, but we use also go beyond by 2 decimal points. So if you wanted to really get down to the nitty-gritty, we're using a 1,000-point scoring system. Not really try to beat out the 100-point system, but we want to just give it the ability so that you can see a variation between the scores, and it's not just a 1 to 10 where there's not really a big gap between those. So, but the other thing is that we wanted to use the full scoring system that's out there. So a lot of the sites that use a 100-point system, the scores are going to be low 80s up to probably 97, 98. So it's a real small range that you're going to use there. We wanted to use the full range. So for us, an average cigar is a 5. An absolutely bad cigar is a 0, and one of the best cigars you ever smoked is a 10. So it should be really easy to kind of understand the format. So that was really the main points of putting together the site, is to try some new things that we didn't see that were out there, but we wanted to try to, play with it, see if it would gain any traction, and kind of put together a site that was something that we wanted to see out there.
No, and I think, and we're gonna talk more in general about scoring, I think, in our Debonair Ideal segment. But I definitely am very interested in the 10-point system that I do want to talk about here. So, how is the reaction to the cigar industry with you introducing a scoring system like this? Because at times, you look at, let's say you give us, under your scoring system, I'm assuming a 7.5 is a very good score.
Yeah, exactly.
But are they still is the mindset still that's a 75?
I think so.
Really
yeah. We haven't really gotten a lot of feedback. I think we're still new, so I don't think we really have had a chance to really dig deep with any of the manufacturers. But I can definitely see them not wanting to tout our scores because people may not really understand the flow of it without maybe checking out our site and reading the whole write-up that we have on the system and why we do it that way. So I think what you're saying is correct. People would see a 7.5 as a 75 and then think that's a horrible score, but in our system it's a very good score. So we knew that going into it, that people were not going to say, oh, I need to plaster your score up on our website or on social media, because people aren't going to see it right away. So I think we know that that's going to take a little bit of time to see if it gets a foothold and people kind of get a feel for it. But even if it doesn't, we're okay with that. We're okay using a different scoring system and kind of maybe grabbing a bit of a cult following behind people that kind of get that system and buy into it.
Yeah, Paul and I, we have actually the Stogie Geeks system, and then Coop uses a traditional numeric scoring system, which it's been just out there. But I'm actually more embracing what we do with the Stogie Geeks system, and it's kind of the same thing. We have a 3, which is a 5er, and people say, "Wow, they gave me a 60." No, a 5er means we're telling you to buy multiples of that cigar, so it's actually not really designed like that per se. So the name Developing Palates, it's kind of a different name for a cigar site. What was the rationale that you wanted to do for that cigar site name?
So June and I, we are big proponents of judging a cigar based on flavor rather than some of the other characteristics. I mean, other things are important: burn, draw, construction, things like that. But for us, flavor is the most important. I can forgive a slightly tight or slightly loose draw. I can forgive a burn that's wavy. To me, that doesn't matter. I want flavor. above and beyond everything else. And that's kind of how we wanted to kind of tie that into the name of the site. But the naming is kind of twofold. One is it's the development of June's palate and my palate. So as a cigar smoker, your palate is always continuing to change and to grow, become more mature, I guess would be the right term. So it's kind of a journey that you're always kind of following. So, things may start off a certain way and you like a certain type of tobacco or a certain, blend or something like that. But as things go along, things may change. You may, become able to pick up more nuances and things like that. And that's just a journey. But we also want to have that journey for our readers and our viewers. So if we can help them to develop their palates by, how we describe things or items that we talk about, that's really the ability to do that. Another thing is that it gives us the opportunity to not only really focus on cigars, but really just focus on flavors. And that can be in anything. That could be in spirits, in beer, in wine. You could really do it to anything if you wanted to take it out real far. You could do it into candy bars. It gets crazy. But our focus is cigars right now. But as you know, cigars always bleeds into other things. So we wanted to leave that door open as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. This is Stogie Geeks episode 188. Will Cooper here, joined by my co-host Aaron Loomis of Developing Palates, who just launched his new website. We're hearing about that right now. How often do you guys publish your reviews?
We do a minimum of once a week. That was kind of our goal going in, saying that we can't do anything less than that. The difference here is than with my previous site is that we have 2 reviewers. So, and we want to both be on the same review. So, just depending on what our schedules are, is going to be based on how frequent we can post. But right now, we're getting about 2 reviews up a week. We do also do news, editorials, things like that as well. So, over the last couple months, we've been, between 2 to 3 different articles a week.
And then there's a video component that you guys do, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So at the bottom of the review, kind of between our final scores, you'll see the YouTube video of our recap, and you can either get to that straight through YouTube or get to it through the review page. So that's just a 20-minute maybe recap of our experience with that cigar and kind of our final thoughts on it. So some people like to read. That's the way they absorb information better. Or some people like to listen or watch to be able to get that. So we didn't want to really leave out any of the components. So we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to find the best medium that works for them to be able to take in the information.
Now, when you and June write the reviews independently? Correct.
We never smoke the cigars together. We don't want one person to influence the other by, if we're talking about it and says, this cigar is, it's a little dry or something like that. We don't want that to influence the other person and think, oh yeah, it is kind of dry. We want to leave it individually. So the only time that we talk about that cigar is when we're doing that video recap, and maybe after the fact, once we've maybe we heard somebody say something that on the video, and we didn't go more in depth on the video, but we wanted to talk about it later. So yeah, completely separate. Really want to get 2 points of view on each cigar.
So in other words, when you do the video, you guys have not seen what you've written up yet, but you've already smoked it?
Correct.
Do you smoke it again on the video? Do you smoke it again on the video?
No, we don't smoke it on the video because really the video is just going to be 20 minutes and it's uncut, so it's straight through. So we're not going to smoke a little bit. Say we're going to come back and do the next third, and then we'll come back and do the next third. It's really just a recap. We don't want to drag it on and make it this. I'm a super slow smoker, so cigars for me are 2 hours, 2.5 hours for a Toro. I mean, that's that could be a long video that people aren't going to stick around for. So we really do a single cigar for each review. I know you do multiples usually, and some other sites do multiples. We really just are based on what our smoking volume is and trying to keep up with the flow on the site. We do one, and there's pros and cons to that. But I think it's still okay since you're getting 2 points of view. So there's 2 cigars smoked for the review. Exactly. It's just one for each person.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly with that. So, June obviously is also, and we got to get June on the show too at some point. He also wears another hat. He's the co-host of What Embargo.
Yep.
Are you guys doing Cubans as well?
We are doing Cubans, so we do a mix. June is a really big Cuban cigar guy. He's just super knowledgeable about it. So it's definitely something that we want to keep in the loop. We understand that our readership and viewership is non-Cuban heavy, just because we're based in the U.S. But we do know that there is a want for Cuban reviews and Cuban information. So I want to say that we're probably right now maybe 60 to 70% non-Cuban, and the other side Cuban.
That's still a pretty good amount of Cuban in there compared to like including our site here and most of the sites. So I'd say that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
No, I would definitely agree with that. Now, is the focus more? Would you say are you more boutique focused? Are you mixed or bigger? How's like the breakdown with that?
I don't know that we would say that we're focused anywhere in particular, but since we do have I would say a low review volume, that we do want to target cigars that maybe either they're brand new to the market, or maybe a brand new brand, or something that's a little bit more high profile. We're probably not going to be doing too many that are like super high volume cigars. We're probably going to target something that's more going to have a bigger impact for traffic and for the people that are out there looking for new information. Yeah,
I find at least the way we do things at Coop and Stogie Geeks is that we tend to focus Coop more on the newer stuff that's out for in the past 12 to 18 months with some other things sprinkled in there. Stogie Geeks, I actually find when we talk about cigars, especially having discussion points on the older cigars is actually pretty interesting with that. Where we can act because we've smoked them much more for longer periods of time. So that's kind of we try to mix it up that way per se.
Yeah, and also just kind of going back and smoking something that's got a decent number of years on it, or maybe it was rare a while back and you came across some of them, and just more of kind of just an interest value is like I've heard people talk about the cigar before. I'm just kind of curious what their experience was. I may not ever be able to come across one or even see one in person, but just kind of having that information in the back of your head because you got somebody's experience on it. I at least find that interesting. So.
No, I definitely agree with you on that standpoint. When you kind of go back and look at that stuff, it's it's interesting. We kind of review, like I said, we have some of the deeper reviews, and then on Stogie Geeks, they're more of the lightweight reviews. I know you came from a pretty comprehensive background when you were with Blind Man's Puff, but you were also, if I'm correct, you were also doing like unblind reviews for them as well. So this is.
Yeah, I was doing quick reviews on that site, and those were just those were not blind reviews. They had the band on it, but it was just a single person on that review. So I was participating in that fashion.
Excellent. Now, one thing we've done at Stogie Geeks, we probably had really went to this about a year and a half ago, is Paul and I have moved towards more of a Vitola model where we're not just judging every cigar by the Vitola, not necessarily the line. What's your kind of feelings on that?
I'm completely on board with you guys on that, and we actually have an editorial that we do called the line analysis, and we've done that for a few cigars now, and that's basically where we compare different Vitolas in the same line to kind of get our thoughts on the differences between them and which one we prefer. And so far, we've only done lines that have 2 Vitolas in it, just because there's a big time investment, especially if you were going to do, let's say, a line that had 6 different Vitolas. Because when we do those only on cigars that we've done full reviews on as well. So it's not going to be a full review on one of the 3 Vitolas, and then the other 2 you don't get to really know our thoughts. It's just going to be kind of a summarized version of that. So that's kind of why we've started out with the low Vitola count lines. But with that, full reviews are on the site. And then we have a separate editorial where it's kind of summarizing the differences that we sense between those 2. You still get to see the score breakdown between the 2 for both June and myself. And then kind of at the end of each of our assessments, we talk about which of the vitolas we prefer the most and for what reason. So goes exactly along the lines of what you guys are talking about is, which one of the vitolas is the best because they are different. It's not going to be the identical experience, just different smoking times. That's not the only difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I just went through an M. Bombay Corojo Oscuro line, and I smoked the double Corona, which was completely different than the Salomon. I mean, it was
right.
It was. I mean, it still had all the core characteristics, but they were very different cigars, and they were both good. They were both good cigars actually. But and you just see what that Vitola does.
Yeah, I think that's the value that when companies come out with line extensions. So they may come out with 3 vitolas in a year, and then the next year they do a line extension. They're not doing it just because somebody asked for a 10-minute difference between what they already had. They know that there's going to be something different that cigar offers.
Exactly, I agree. Are you guys going to be doing a cigar of the year end list? You guys plan on doing something like that?
I don't know yet. We have this thing that we want to do, but it didn't work out this year. And I'm not sure if it's because of some the FDA things that were popping up, but we had a different take that we wanted to try, but I don't think it's going to fly this year. And then we'll have to kind of see how things with the FDA shake out to see if we'll do it. But we'll probably, be on some of the end of the year podcasts and video shows out there, but I don't know if we're necessarily going to do a cigar of the year list. We'll see.
No, it's and I can understand with everything going, because it's obvious it may affect some things on Coop as well, probably in 2017. Well, let me ask a question, because I know you've been involved with these lists and you've discussed them.
Sure.
There's 3 philosophies that I've seen with the list. There's number one is the cigar had to come out during a certain time period, which is tending to what we use over here.
Right.
The second philosophy is you had to smoke. It's a cigar that was smoked during a particular calendar year.
Right.
And then there's the third that is it's basically the best cigar that year, regardless when it came out. What philosophy do you subscribe to? And then you may be curious about my reaction on that.
Yeah, I think yours might have changed. So I am more in the camp of it's cigars that were released within a 1-year time window, depending on where you started. If you're defining it as a year, it needs to be within a 1-year time frame. Doesn't matter when you start it or when you stop it. It just needs to be in that window. So you just decide when it starts, when it stops, and then that would be it. But I think I know where you're going in regards to some cigars do better fresh and some cigars do better with a little bit of time on them. And how do you correlate that with the time window that you've kind of staked into the ground is kind of where you're going.
Yeah, and I'm kind of struggling with it because I've actually now began to be more sympathetic to the cigar aficionado approach, which has not been popular with people. I'm not going to make a change to that this year, but if there's not enough new cigars with FDA, that's probably the direction I'm going to go in. I think it's a tougher thing to do because you have to smoke a lot more to kind of really do an accurate assessment of the landscape in terms of what really was the best cigar sitting on a shelf that year.
And it's
you can't
tough to
that.
know
without
box codes on non-Cuban cigars because, if you want to say, okay, I'm going to give myself an 18-month or a 24-month window, you don't know how long some of those cigars have been sitting there. So you don't know if the cigar's been, especially if it's an older Vitola or an older line that, is making the list. Like Cigar Aficionado, it could be a cigar that's been on the market for 6 years and now it's getting that recognition, but you don't know if it's been sitting on the shelf for 6 years or if it's a newer production of that same line. That's the tough part I see in kind of doing that.
I agree. It's Will Cooper, episode 188 of Stogie Geeks. Aaron Loomis of Developing Palates is joining me as co-host tonight, and we mentioned FDA, so let's just kind of go in that direction. And I kind of warned you ahead of time. I'm going to ask some interesting questions here, and hopefully I'm not going to get into trouble here. So we all know I think we don't need to go down what's happening with the FDA. We all know what's happening, okay? Mm-hmm. We all know what the impacts are going to be. But I think in the last week or so, I'm starting to see an interesting reaction from the cigar industry. And I'll kind of ask this question right out of the gate. Do you think the cigar industry was ready for what happened on May 5th?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I think that it maybe just because it was it came so like over such a long period of time that everybody just thought like, we'll get it taken care of when it happens. We'll get it taken care of when it happens. And then boom, May 5th it happens, and then it's like now I'm in shock. It's like weeks of trying to recover, and then what who knows what's going on.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'll preface this. I do have confidence in the leadership we still have. So this is not a knock on people in the leadership, what I'm going to say. But I do feel that there were two options put out there, and we pretty much knew which option it was going to be. I think there was hope for that second option. But I think and the thing that concerns me is that we should have been ready to go right out of the gate with a response on May 5th. And in fairness, I haven't asked the leadership why we weren't ready to go out of the gate on May 5th.
Right.
That's a question I need to still ask people. But, the vape industry was ready to go on May 5th. Yeah,
and I think that they knew. I mean, they're like the young guys, the vape industry. They're in there. They're already hungry. They got money rolling in from everybody that's into the vape scene. And this is really, they don't have anything to fall back on. It's either they're in business or they're not in business. So they got to go. They're like a cornered wild animal. They just got to come out and be blazing to stay on the map. With the cigar industry, it's a different viewpoint because you have that grandfather date, and there's some of those guys that are qualifying for that, and then there's some people that aren't. So you're like, okay, the guys that aren't and that they're serious about staying in this business, they're the ones that have to fight like that. But maybe the ones that don't, they're like still kind of on the edge, whether they want to push too hard or they don't, and kind of see what kind of business they can continue on with their older blends. Yep.
No, that's a good point. That's a real good point. And I'm gonna talk about the grandfather thing in a little bit, because I think there's an interesting twist with that. But okay, so I'm gonna ask you there's three groups I'd say in the cigar industry. And I'm going to ask you to give a letter grade, and I'll do the same, so I won't put you totally on the spot. So when I get, in terms of what I mean is grade them A to F. A being top, F being a fail. Okay,
right.
Let's start off with cigar enthusiasts, and the question I have is, grade the sense of urgency you've seen from the cigar enthusiasts right now in terms of these are FDA regulations. This is not a proposal. I want folks to understand. This is right now the final ruling, and it's going to take a major act to overturn. Where's the sense of urgency right now with cigar enthusiasts?
I'd say like a B-. I think that they're pretty active in regards to wanting to sign petitions and things like that, and they're definitely active in wanting to complain about it on social media, so they're at least doing that. But I think there's and I don't know if this is going to be another category, but there's I think a big gap for the B&Ms, and if the cigar enthusiasts are serious about it, they really need to hit up every B&M that they can and make sure that they're pushing for all their other customers to be interested in fighting this as well, signing petitions or other steps to be able to make this happen. So I would say, it's encouraging, but it's a B-.
Okay, so here's my answer. I'm going to say on social media, I'm going to give them an A. Mm-hmm. But on non-social media, I'm going to give them an F. So I'm gonna balance it.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
You classify the ones that are not on social media as cigar enthusiasts. So that's where I kind of draw a differentiation. But
right, and I'll get to the petitions because I want to talk about the petitions in a minute. But let's kind of go to the next category. Okay. Retail shop owners.
I would say an F, and that's based on just my experiences in B&Ms as well as reports from other people at B&Ms. There's a lot of them that say that they walk into one and they don't see anything happening. They ask the shop owner or somebody working there, and they may not even know what's going on. So I don't think it's going well. But I do see some, at least in California, which uses cigar brokers for most of things rather than actual sales staff, I do see them posting that they're actually every shop that they go into, they're posting up the ones that actually have like an iPad out on the counter and everybody that comes to the counter is actually filling out a petition and doing something about it.
Okay, so take it away from the petition in general.
Okay.
Like, because the petition is one component to this.
Right.
You still give it the same grade?
I still give it an F.
Okay. I'm going to give it a D. And I'm being generous here because because I have seen a few, but in general, I just took a weekend trip and I was in 5 cigar shops over the past weekend, and 0 for 5 in terms of not just, I'm not even asking for the petition to be out there, but any awareness.
Right.
No one mentioned the FDA to me, nothing. And I got to give them a D right now on that. There are a couple, that I've seen that have really tried to do that. But again, I'm looking beyond the petition. It's is there a grassroots piece going on as well?
Right.
So from that perspective, I think and that's why we'll get to the petitions in a little bit. So the third question, the manufacturers and brand owners.
And we're not going to pick out boutiques versus big brands. We're just going to go all as one.
Let's go as one.
Okay.
And if you want to break it down like I did with the cigar consumers, that's fine.
Okay. Manufacturers, I'll give them a D. And that's just because, and that may just be because I'm not aware of what's going on. They may be working feverishly in back rooms or whatever, or with their lawyers, and I'm just not aware of it. That's entirely possible. But it just seems like you see some guys on social media post, I'm meeting with my lawyer about what's going to happen. It's like, yeah, your lawyer, I'm not sure what your lawyer is going to be able to do for you, but you probably need to be at a much higher level, and that might be something where multiple manufacturers are banding together to work with a team of lawyers to make something happen. And I just don't know if that's actually what's going on or not.
I have the same grade, a D. And I was very tempted to pull the F rating out on this, but it was a D, only because I do know that there have been a few that have been meeting with lawyers and taking the time to go through this. But in general, I have not seen the sense of urgency from the retail and the manufacturing end. Of those 3 groups, which one do you think should have the most sense of urgency? The consumers,
the manufacturers, 100%.
Yeah. And here's the amazing thing, Aaron, and I just see the manufacturers, what they're doing is it's being pushed back to the consumers and the retailers. I have to read a quote from Craig Snyder on his show the other night. And he basically wrote, I've heard the manufacturers, complain about the public not being involved in this fight as they should be. I haven't seen any fight that they are participating in other than as consumers themselves. So in other words, he's saying basically, he's not seeing the skin in the game right now with this.
Right.
So there's an organization, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on this, called SaveTheLeaf.org. And I guess they're organizing a protest on Washington. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I applaud these guys. Okay. I think you want to do that, take advantage of the right as an American to do that and get people involved with that. Great. I think it's a great thing. I'm not knocking it at all.
Right.
Now, look, here's my point on this. I sort of have a Facebook group of 3,000 people. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I sort of are probably about 30 to 40 manufacturers, and they need money. They need funds to raise. Mm-hmm. Do you know how much money they've raised total?
How much?
$185 from 6 people. Do you know how many of them were manufacturers? 1. None.
Okay.
So that's where I'm going with this. I think it's great that the manufacturers are getting involved with this, but ultimately where I'm coming back to this is, it's not just putting petitions up anymore that I think are going to matter at this point. I think it's got to be more of this is going to be a financial battle right now, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And if that financial battle, if they don't have money, and it's not just for this Save the Leaf thing is a small thing compared to what's going to be needed with the lawyers right now.
Right.
But you're looking at a long legal fight. So
absolutely.
Now I think we have to see. I think we have to see what the plan is coming out of CRA, IPCPR, CAA.
Yeah.
But here's my question. The vape industry, where do you think that lawsuit, do you have any inkling where you think that lawsuit's going to come from? Do you think it's going to be a manufacturer who files a lawsuit, or do you think it's going to be one of those organizations?
That's the thing is, I don't know that. I think for the cigar industry to do it, it needs to. I mean, it has to have a lot of financial backing, and I don't think that there's going to be. At least I'm not aware of any of the big companies that have the financial resources to do it. I haven't heard anything that they have any plans to do something like that. I don't think any of the boutiques can do it on their own. And I don't even know if all the boutiques banded together have the resources to make it happen. So I'm thinking that it may need to come from one of those larger organizations that all these manufacturers are a member of to make that happen. And I don't know what their resources are to be able to do that.
No, and I don't either. But I mean, a kind of funny thing is, imagine if the irony is, what if this thing comes from IPCPR and not necessarily the manufacturer? That's kind of where I'm going with this. Where at least this round of regulations to me seem to really affect the manufacturers more than the retailers. And that could change with the next round of regulations. So maybe there is a reason why IPCPR wants to get involved now. But I just find it really ironic right now. Yeah,
I mean the shop owners can sell all the cigars that were, released before 2007, and, maybe depending on their clientele, they may stay in business. I mean, if they're a shop that caters to, casual smokers and golfers and things like that, they may have no problem continuing on. But if they're like a boutique heavy, like the Underground in Texas or something like that, where, all those cigars are gone, they have to make a decision. Do we go big brands, or do we just pack up shop? So it's, kind of depends on what their kind of clientele looks like.
No, I agree. The interesting thing is, obviously there's the three groups of brand owners. There's small, very small. Mm-hmm. So I mean, where guys maybe have one or two blends. Then there's the big, the big Altadis and Davidoffs, which have a lot of grandfathered stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's this middle group. And the middle group's further subdivided by people who have some old brands or some people who don't. It's that middle group that I think has really been too quiet in my book. I think that middle group is the one that, like, why are they so quiet? What would your feeling be? Any guesses why? Because it's puzzling me.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if they're just hedging their bets and, like, we can take it on the chin with the new stuff and continue with the old stuff. I'm just not sure, unless they. My hope is that they got stuff going on behind the scenes that we're just not aware of, and they're gonna come out with one some big blow and take a shot at it. I just don't know if that's the case or not. Yeah, no, it's interesting on that. So I think we picked on the manufacturers enough. So the consumers obviously are taking, there's a lot of talk that, hey, these petitions are going out there right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell everyone you do need to sign them. And I think you'll agree. You do need to sign these petitions. Yes. I know we're all sick of petitions. Okay. Right. But yeah, you agree we need to sign them. Yes. Okay. So, what's your thought, on the petitions? There's a legislative one and a presidential one. What are your thoughts on those petitions? I was on Smoke Night Live with Master Sensei on Friday, and we were talking about this, and he's really pumped up about the petitions. And I'm in agreement with him in that, it's not going to change anybody's mind that the petitions, but it actually, it's keeping people involved, and it's making your voice heard, and the fact that, once you get enough signatures, it's going to go to somebody to at least take a look at, so they know what's out there on the horizon. But I think even the consumers need to push the manufacturers, and they need to push the B&M owners to keep driving this. I don't know if the manufacturers just need that push from the consumers as well. I wouldn't think that would be the case, but if they need it, then us as consumers, if we want to continue to smoke new stuff, that's what we have to do to maybe light a fire. Yeah, and I agree. I think, first of all, I have no problem with anyone saying we should sign the petitions and doing a push on it and creating that awareness. Mm-hmm. However, I do think everyone in every retail shop should have every one of their employees be signing this thing. Right. And I think every cigar company who's behind the petition should have every one of their reps be signing this thing. And, so I do think there needs to be some grassroots, and maybe the Stogie Geeks production staff needs to sign that. They technically work for Paul's other brand, so, but still, that's my point is, I think it needs to be more than just, and I think it does need to be more
off of Facebook right now because I think most of the guys I smoke with have no clue what goes on Facebook.
Right.
I mean, honestly, and they have no idea with that. So
Exactly.
So that's just my opinion on that piece as well.
Yeah.
So if I had to gaze into the crystal ball here, what's your thing? What do you think IPCPR is going to look like? Well, wait, let me back off before I ask that. Before we kind of go there, right? Imagine if these regulations came out 4 weeks earlier. We may not be talking about a trade show this year.
Exactly, and that's what my wonder is for next year.
Yeah.
So, is this the last trade show in the United States? And if not, and these regulations go into effect, what does the one next year look like? It's just, a very small subset of brands and cigars that are there, and it's really more of a get to know you between the B&M owners and the manufacturers. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, my crystal ball was going to say it probably I could see Inter Tobacco becoming the big trade show. The limiteds all go to Europe and Asia. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I would see happen on that piece. The other thing is they have the TAA cigars, which I don't know what's going to happen to them. But I bet you the TAA will always stay in Mexico because that's how they're going to get free samples.
Right. Now, are there any TAA retailers that are not inside the United States?
I think they're all U.S.
Okay.
Now,
So,
I've heard some talk, and I don't want to name the manufacturer, but I've heard some talk they may announce the 2017 and 18 TAA cigars pretty soon on some of them. So that's just something I've heard. I know that they've talked about it. It's not a rumor. I don't want to name anything, but they've talked about it. They don't know if they can actually make it happen in time. No, it's
sure.
It's the whole thing as far as I go. The other thing I've heard is, is it possible that I've heard some talk that maybe samples will be around at IPCPR? That it's kind of considered a trade show as opposed to a consumer, giving something to a consumer. So there's kind of a gray area I've heard about that.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to be curious about. How sample is defined, or gift, or whatever the term that they're using. But also for us in the media, I wonder if they use the term donation, how that works as well. Does that get around the sample piece? So maybe if they donate to the media, the cigars, that they provide us from time to time, that may be a way of getting around that piece. But I don't know how it would work for the retailer side.
Yeah, I think there's definitely the lawyers have to definitely look at that. I mean, I've heard some discussion. I know there was an article written by Dave Garofalo about no more cigar donations. I don't know if that's exactly true or not because.
Right.
And I'm not going to say one more because I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard it already be questioned that a marketing sample and a donation to charity are two separate things. So I think ultimately that's something probably the lawyers and IPCPR and that all needs to be looked at probably at some point. But obviously it's not good news no matter what it is.
Yeah. And with IPCPR this year, I mean, July is before the August deadline. So you have all the manufacturers, you have all the retailers that want to attend, you have media. Like, if there's not something being organized as some sort of a plea or demonstration or whatever around that, that's a completely lost opportunity.
Totally agree. I totally agree with that.
I mean, you have so much power in one location at one time. I don't know if you got to march down the strip, man, all the way across all the lanes. I don't know what you're doing, but something's going to happen, right?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That would be. That's you're going to have the whole industry, more people concentrated than any other time during the year on that.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good point as well. The other thing that I guess this is something I've started to think about because it's going to be something that affects me is advertising and some of the warning label requirements. Are those things you're starting to think about too? Because that's going to change the way we put ads up as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, is it 30% or 40% of the ad needs to be covered by a warning?
It's 30%.
Okay, 30%, and it has to change on a quarterly basis, correct?
Correct.
So we need to get new artwork from the manufacturers and things like that for ads. I mean, I think some of the bigger guys like Altadis in general might be already be putting some of the warning labels on some of their ads. So I'm not sure that has a huge effect, but it'll definitely affect their artwork and how they want to show things off. But I don't know if it'll have a huge effect there.
Yeah, so what I understand as I did some research into, because you will see, for example, what some of our ads, you may see the warning label already on there. That some of the bigger companies, this is probably going back about 15 years ago, they made a deal with the Federal Trade Commission to voluntarily put on these warning labels. And they could be affixed, they could be affixed however they want. And I think they also put it on the swag. You'll see it too. The new regulations are going to trump those there, because now I think the warning label has to actually be a physical part of the packaging and have that 30% covered. And they got to rotate through this list of them right now. So,
right.
So I think it is going to be, but ultimately I think we're going to have to be in compliance with these types of things as well. Otherwise, we could be subject to fines. I mean, so it's something we're going to have to seriously, I think, all start to think about from a media standpoint.
Yeah, we have to be on top of it. No, I don't think any of us are really doing this as a career, and all it takes is one slip up, and we're in litigation or something, and we're pretty much done. So we have to make sure that we're ahead of that.
Exactly. So let's turn to some more positive stuff as we wrap up this segment. 2016 so far. If you had to say right now, what's been released so far? What's been the most impressive cigar you've had to date this year?
2016. I haven't smoked a ton of stuff from this year, but a few things that kind of jumped out at me. Pickle Juice was a good release.
Very good release.
Yep. Davidoff Nicaragua box press.
Toro or Robusto?
I've smoked both. I've done a review on the Robusto, so I'm probably leaning towards more on the Toro side.
Me too. Paul was a little lukewarm on the Robusto. I've told him to try the Toro, but I agree. The Toro was fantastic.
The Crux PB5 Limitada.
Very good cigar.
Yeah, I mean it wasn't supposed to come out this year. I think it was supposed to come out last year, but it kind of got delayed. So it's now fallen in here. I would say those are kind of the maybe the bigger ones. Southern Draw, Quick Draw, Connecticut.
Very good cigar.
Nice cigar. But there's probably a few others that I'm not mentioning because I haven't smoked them yet.
Yeah, I'll probably say the ones that I've really liked right now. Vito Gomez Small Batch number 6 actually came out the end of last year. Kind of still falls into this year for me. Probably one of the best cigars I've had from La Flor in a long time, and they've had some good ones. Paul Garmerian 25th anniversary, I'm going to put up there as well. That was a cigar. Again, it was kind of one that came out very, very late last year. I was really blown away with that particular cigar as well. So that was, I'd say, those two are kind of the standouts for me. I did like the 1502 XO a lot. I thought that was an excellent cigar, and Griffin's Nicaragua in the Robusto size,
right?
Which was, I think, probably the most underrated cigar to come out this year.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to get my hands on it so I can see if I'm in the same boat.
Yep. How about now looking ahead to the show, and there's going to be a lot that's coming as we just talked about. What cigars right now are on the radar that you think they could be brands too of what they're going to do? So you don't have to say a specific cigar.
Sure.
What are some things you're looking at right now?
Something that was just released, I think, this weekend was the Protocol Lancero and the Probable Cause.
I smoked the Lancero.
Yeah, I'm very curious about those because the Protocol was really good. So I'm very curious to see what kind of the follow up is to that.
I'm gonna talk about the Lancero in the Stogies of the Week this week.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll
That's
give
awesome.
you my thoughts on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Nomad SA17.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that one. Let's see what else. I'm kind of interested in some of the new Christoph stuff that that's I think maybe came out already this month or is coming out soon.
There's one more, the Pissed Off, I think, still to come out.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious to that. Christoph seems to always fly under the radar, but they have some good cigars. So I definitely something that I want to try. And then the Tatuaje TA 2016. The 2015 got such good reviews, so I'm kind of curious to see what the follow up is to that as well.
Yeah, I tell you, I thought the 2015 was the best one to come out. I was really impressed with that cigar. No, I definitely agree with you on that. I'm actually curious, and it looks like it's getting a soft launch next month. That Drew Estates Florida Sun-Grown cigar.
That's been kind of out there for a while, kind of.
Yeah,
slowly getting some traction.
Yeah, totally going to see the light of day this year. So I mean, that's, I would say, one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing at the show. I think there's going to be a lot of Connecticut at the show this year, from what I've seen in pipelines, and I don't know what I'm privy to talk about yet, but I think most of the stuff I was told is basically you can't talk about it. But I think there's going to be plenty of cigars out there with that. I did see EP Carrillo has a new La Historia coming out.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be a non-Maduro offering, it looked like, with that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then Florida Silver has been playing with some box presses I've seen online, but they've talked about that's a possibility I think they may have at the show this year, which I'm real curious about as well. And then I want to smoke that Davidoff Chef's Edition, but I think it just hit the shelves, so I'm kind of curious on that as well.
Yep. And then Camacho's got the Power Band coming out. So they always, they're doing some good things. And then Crown Heads has the Angel's Anvil for 2016, and they also have the Las Calaveras 2016. So those would be some other ones that probably have high profiles.
Yep. Did you? I liked the Angel's Anvil 2015 a lot. I actually thought it was one of the better TAA cigars, but I know a lot of people preferred the 14 on that one. And then the other brand that we had these guys on the show a few weeks ago that we were really high on was the JRE cigars. And they're being done by Julio Aroa, and who's Christian's father, and his brother Justo is running the company. And they were very, very impressive cigars. We were very, very surprised with those. Nothing like you'd expect from Christian Aroa or CLE. They're very different. A lot more old school type of a cigar.
Yeah, like the Tatascan was a very good offering from them.
Yeah,
it was kind of, they're still kind of more under the CLE umbrella at that point, but now that's kind of moving out now to their own thing. So
yeah, and that was their value price cigar, which I found amazing. That was the Aladino. We really all kind of just fell in love with that cigar. So I think they'll hopefully with FDA these companies will be around some more.
Right.
So all right, I think what we'll do. Aaron, before we kind of wrap the segment up, why don't you tell folks where they can find Developing Palates on social media and on the web, and then we'll kind of go into a break.
Sure. DevelopingPalates.com is the site. We're on all the social media channels, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+. We have a YouTube channel as well, so you can go there if you just want to catch the videos, but the videos are also embedded in the reviews, so you can get to them either way. And right now we're doing actually a Sober Mesa contest, so we're giving away a bunch of Sober Mesas. So if you have the opportunity and are interested in winning some of those cigars, I'd say hit the website, enter the contest. It's going to end next weekend, so you still got about a week of time to get yourself entered into that.
If my buddy Stace Merklin's listening, you hear that? Sober Mesa contest. That's an inside joke. But no, all right. So Aaron, thanks. You're gonna come back. You're gonna join us for the rest of the show as the So we'll take a break right now, and we'll be back with our Debonair Ideal segment.